Hey, what is up, Patreon? All right, I wanted to do a little lesson today. You're going to get your learn on. All right, and look, the one thing that I'll say, and I'm starting to get super busy, is the tiers, the $20 tier and the $50 tier. Part of the lesson of what I've been giving most people is still it's a real focus on the fundamentals, and I'm going to show really clearly why it's incredibly important. So what you see on the screen right now is something called the Asaro head, and how I discovered it was Joel Gomez, comic book penciler who came down from LA to work at Wildstorm, really as Jim's background assistant. He used to work for Michael Turner. He's worked for Mark Silvestri, legit artist. He's working for Brian Pulido right now doing a book. And he had gone to Art Center up there, and I think Asaro was one of his teachers. I could be wrong on that. But anyway, so this is a fairly large, it's almost a human-sized head, and he brought this thing into Wildstorm, and I actually took a ton of photos of it, because at different times of the day, the light would fall over it in different ways. But what I want to point out to you is when I stress, like, if you can master lighting a sphere, and you can master lighting a cube or rectangle or cylinder, one, you're going to be able to construct drawings better, really, honestly, quite easily, believe it or not. And you'll be able to light them. It's two of the hugest obstacles that artists face, and I just can't stress it enough that all anatomy, all form is based on geometry. It's like, I don't think people want to believe it. Clothing, the whole thing. It's when you understand these forms and you can use these forms and sort of wield them at your discretion, you are going to make huge leaps and strides with your work, because now posing isn't hard. Now drawing a hand isn't hard at a certain angle, because you kind of understand how to construct things, and you still will need to learn anatomy and where these shapes go, but bridging those two concepts together is incredibly important. So let's take a look at the Sorrow head. Each side is slightly different. So if we look at this will be good. All right, so planes of the head, and we're going to count them. This is going to be good for me, too. You can never learn this stuff enough. So the light source is coming from above right now. And what you have is, this is catching the most light. We're going to call it a 1, 2, 3, 4 read, meaning brightest, 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 brightest. So these are all planes. When people ask me, I don't know how to light a figure, I don't know where to render. Well, I'm going to show you right now where you're going to light a figure and where you're going to render. And again, when you're composing pages, you do it to move the person through a page. So it's a stylistic application of lighting. You don't choose a light source that's going to send people to the left if you're trying to make them go to the right. So you would want things and shapes to go this way. But if you can't wield lighting and understand geometry at a basic level, you're really not going to be able to implement all that stuff. All you can do is sort of copy things. So anyway, this would be your white. This is the brightest part. Like if this was Batman, this would be the highlight, this would be the highlight, and it goes down. Now, the shadows on Batman generally come from the side, because they always want to indicate a shadow on the nose. But okay, so this is a top plane, meaning it's sticking out the furthest. This curves in, so it's actually going into space, like if you were looking at a small jewelry box tilted to its side, and it's kind of going away from you, and this end is coming towards you. So this is an area where you would maybe do cross-hatching, because it's not totally black, it's not fully in shadow, but it's starting to head that way. And the thing is this is a very simplified version of the face. If you were going to draw this as a Batman face, you would have little creases. So each one of those creases is just you dividing geometry and having light fall over it. And the rule would be anything that's a top plane is going to catch light. So if you had little shapes that looked more like the eye socket here, like a wrinkle, well, every top plane is going to catch light. Every side plane is going to be one that you cross-hatch. Every one that's an underplane, if the wrinkle or crease had a shape that started to go in, that would be black. That's how you would render it. So very light lines, heavier cross-hatching into the shadow. Light lines, cross-hatching, shadow. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? And you know, you can Google this and find many different sort of iterations, and people have done tons of studies of it. I would recommend just finding the actual photographs that people have taken of this with different light sources. And if you really want to get fancy, you could buy one. I don't know what they cost. I would guess it's maybe $100, something like that. But again, it's almost a life-size head. It's quite big, but pretty cool. Is this going to solve every drawing head problem that you ever have? No, because it's still simplified. But this side is more complex than this side. But again, when you're drawing an eye, you know, I always talk about like you place an eyelid, but check this out. This is a top plane. So this top plane is catching light, just like these top planes. This is the top of your chin. This lip sticks out further than this. This is going back into space. This is an edge that goes into space. This starts to bow out a little bit. If you actually look, there's a bit of a shadow that goes here, and it's a little bit lighter here underneath this. And this is actually catching bounce light. Bounce light's its own thing. We won't worry about that. Comic book art uses a lot of bounce light. I did a video review for Jonathan here, and he uses a lot of comic book lighting. And comic book lighting is usually triple lighting, meaning everything is sort of core shadowed or brightest in the middle, a little shadow, brighter, and then a little bit of a shadow towards the edge, and then a bright edge. You can see that with J. Scott Campbell, Arthur Adams. It's kind of a generic fictional lighting, I call it. It's not a big deal, but you know, it's more of a style than it's based in reality, but it's a stylistic delivery. But yeah, so doesn't that make this already sound easier to you? And look, the reality is learning this on your own might not be that easy. I kind of assume that people will get this easier than maybe some will. So if you're having trouble with it, this would be what I would recommend. And I'm not trying to encourage you to spend money on me, but for $20, I can look at your stuff and really like spend a little bit of time on your specific work and point out what you're having trouble seeing and sort of utilizing. And then for the $50 tier, I can get way more into it, and really go over your stuff. And my videos have gone way over. If you're interested in inking your stuff, I have a pre-made 30-minute video that covers a lot of inking stuff. So I'm really trying to give you great value for it. They're quite time-consuming for me, honestly. But you know, I feel a level of responsibility each person that takes it on, and I want to make sure that they walk away going like, all right, that's a lot of good stuff that I need to pay attention to, because that's really what it comes down to. No one can do the hard work for you. All they can do is sort of point out what you're doing wrong, give you options and ideas to sort of develop it, and then you need to kind of run with that ball for a little bit, a few weeks, a month or two, and then, you know, it would be a good idea to show it to someone who can rationalize it. So let's look at another shot of the Asaro head. Try to find some bigger shots. So if you don't know how to use Google Images, I'll show you this too. So click on Tools, Size, and you can get large, larger than, and you can pick some pretty big size. Large is good though, just because it won't limit your choices as much. So this is cool. I've saved this somewhere on my computer, I'm sure. So, you know, what's nice about this too is you can actually kind of look at different angles of the head and whatnot. So, you know, again, this is excuse me, a good tool to learn a simple application of the planes of the head. And I would do this. I would count it out. I would count how many planes from the lips down, how many planes. And again, this side is more simplified than that side, but how many planes are there? And let's see if I can zoom. All right, well, here, we're going to count. We'll count right here. So we're going to start right at the eye, and we're going to work our way down. And we're just going to deal with the cheek, not the nose, but we'll take it to the middle of the lips. So you've got one plane that is the top plane of the eyelid, the lower lid. You've got this plane that faces forward that is the lid. You've got this one that goes back into space that's darker. You've got a 1, 2, 3 read. If you haven't watched that Scott Robertson video, there's a very, very good reason that I recommended it. And it's because it's everything. It is all of this. And if you understand that Scott Robertson video, you are going to liberate yourself from a lot of guessing in art. So then what's beautiful about this is, look, there's a little tiny plane right there, and it goes into shadow, but then it's got a little bit of a bright spot right there. This is a side plane. Okay, front plane, but because it's lower than this, it's starting to go into shadow. This is a side plane. It's actually going back into space. You've got the side of the cranium, which is kind of sloped. It's you could almost divide this into 3 parts. Kind of more of a front plane. This is like the mask of the mouth. You'll see that it's you've got this face is forward. This is going up towards the cheek. The cheek sits here, but the cheek drops down. And again, if you look at people that really understand how to light faces, again, Batman's always a great example because people really light it dramatically. When you see like all these little like square shapes like on the face, this is what they're doing, is they're lighting all these different creases with shadows. So it curves down here. This is a nice sort of, if you could memorize this shape, it'll sort of help you build that. Then this is the I think it's called masseter muscle, but it's a very, very strong part of your jaw. And your lips is, 1, 2, 3, 4, I mean, you can have it simplified and just learn the shape, but it does start to go back and in a little bit. 1 plane, 2 plane, 3 plane. This is a nice one. Very, very popular in comics, and usually they'll indicate another piece of geometry right here, and you can even... What ultimately ends up happening is you can divide this stuff into more detailed pieces. So someone that's simple would do it more like this side of the face, Bruce Timm or something like that. He's only going to... like his rule book is, I've got 8 major planes and then, 6 small ones. And then someone like, J. Scott Campbell, maybe his is more like this. Like if he's really going to render a face, he uses this many planes. And then maybe someone who's psycho detailed and puts a ton of rendering, they might even dissect these a little bit more and try to find more planes that they can put in. So anyway, we're at 12 minutes. I think that's a pretty good overview of why this is important. And then, go on Google, look up Asaro head, and have some fun and maybe sketch a few of these. I think you'll really enjoy it, and 2, you can learn a lot from it. And then when you look at a real head, male or female, you'll get some good. You'll go into it more informed, and when you're more informed, you can learn more. That's the thing. Is the more I study, the more I'm able to look at art and see what's really going on at a level that someone that's not as informed can do. And then the only other thing that I would really, really recommend is size relationships. I talked about this in someone's video yesterday, but you really want to pay attention to proportions. So when you're sketching and stuff like that, one of the first things that you want to deal with is the distances and size of things, and make sure that your size relationships match up. Even if you're going to do a really simple version of the head, like don't get caught up in like 1,000 of these little shapes right out of the gate. Like maybe this side is too complicated for you. So find some of these and just make sure that you're doing something that looks comfortable together, that it's balanced. That's a beautiful, beautiful head up here. This one is really nice. Love that. It's really great looking. It's an attractive form. So when you draw it, make sure that at the simplest base level is the cranium, the jaw, the ear, and at least this part of the neck all relate to each other properly in size. When you can get that down, then start going in and adding maybe some of the landmarks. So start simple, but consistent with size relationships that work. Then put a little bit of the detail, the simple side. See if you can do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plane thing, and then build it up from there. All right, best of luck, and I hope that this was a fun and informative little video for you. All right, bye.